Welcome aboard Beyond the Engine Room, a podcast produced by Rob Peterson, an ex-Marine fitter who tells us about his travels around the globe, some of the characters he met, the ports he saw, and even a glimpse inside the engine room. Okay, so today we're diving into a story that really grabbed my attention.
Oh, yeah.
It's about a work trip.
All right.
But not just any work trip.
Okay.
This one takes us to Northern Ireland.
Interesting.
Back in 1990, right in the thick of the Troubles.
Ah, a challenging time.
And this story, well, it just jumped out.
I see. And what makes this particular story so unique?
Well, unlike a lot of his other adventures, this one doesn't involve a ship.
Really?
Yeah.
That is a bit different.
It was supposed to be, a routine maintenance trip to Belfast, but
I bet that
it turned into anything but routine.
I bet it didn't go as planned.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So Rob and his two coworkers,
Okay.
they start their journey at Cardiff Airport.
Right?
And they board a flight to Aldergrove,
Okay.
which is a civilian airport in Belfast.
Mm-hmm.
And everything seems pretty normal at first.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, you'd think.
You're going on a,
Yeah,
work trip.
it's a work trip.
You're flying civilian.
Yeah, I mean, nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah. Yet.
You don't expect anything crazy to happen?
Right. And that's kind of like a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Right.
Because that illusion is shattered when they're picked up.
Not for a ride to their work site,
Oh, okay.
but to RAF Bishop Court,
A military base.
which is a military base near Downpatrick.
So it immediately shifts.
Yeah.
From, like you said, civilian to we're in a military zone now.
Exactly. And that's when the gravity of the situation really hits them.
Right.
Rob talks about this intense security setup,
Oh, wow.
floodlights illuminating every corner, multiple gates they had to pass through,
Jeez.
and then a pillbox with a machine gun trained directly on their vehicle.
I mean,
That's intense.
that just shows you right there.
Yeah.
The level of security and the threat of violence
Oh, absolutely.
that was present during the Trouble.
It was a constant threat.
Yeah.
And just when they think they've seen it all,
What else could there be?
bam, they're hit with a blinding spotlight.
Oh, my God.
It's like straight out of a movie.
Yeah. You can just imagine, the interrogation light.
Yeah.
Just bam, right in your face.
Yeah, exactly. And, it makes you wonder what's going through Rob's mind at that point. I mean...
They end up staying in the sergeant's mess,
Oh,
which Rob describes as surprisingly comfortable.
oh, really?
Good food. A subsidized bar.
That's interesting.
The whole thing went down while he was on this work trip working as a contractor for the RAF.
Yeah, for the Royal Air Force.
Now, can you imagine going to work every day
Oh, this is a good one.
with armed military escorts?
I mean, talk about
It was just crazy.
a sign of the times, right?
It really was. That was Rob's reality back then.
Yeah, every day traveling in these convoys
Convoys.
with armed military escorts because of the whole security situation there.
Yeah, because of the Troubles.
Exactly. It really gives you a sense.
It's your real sense of what it was like to live and work in Northern Ireland back then.
Yeah.
But even the normal stuff had an edge.
Oh, I bet.
In their security briefing, they were warned about booby-trapped porn magazines.
Wait, what?
It's like, you almost have to laugh, but it's a dark humor,
That's dark.
It's just so unexpected.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you the lengths they went to.
To instill fear, I guess.
Yeah, to create this atmosphere of fear and uncertainty.
And also just how unpredictable the threats were.
Exactly.
This is where we find Rob on a Saturday. He and his colleagues get a half day off,
Nice.
which is nice. And they're invited to a rugby match.
All right. Sounds like a good way to spend a half day.
Yeah. So can you picture this? They get driven to the match through the streets of Belfast
Belfast streets. Oh, wow.
with those same armed escorts. I
Yeah.
mean, can you imagine that pregame drive?
Talk about a memorable trip to the rugby pitch, right?
Unforgettable. So they arrive at the rugby ground.
Yeah.
And Rob's thinking he's just going to be a spectator.
Kicking back, enjoying the game.
Yeah, just cheering his colleagues on.
Yeah.
But boy, was he wrong.
Uh-oh.
This big sergeant comes up to him,
A big sorry. Yeah.
a big sergeant, and basically tells him, "You're Welsh. You must play rugby. Get suited up. We're a man down."
No way. That's amazing.
It's like straight out of a movie.
Like you're just thrown into this crazy situation.
Totally unexpected.
And you have to just roll with it.
Exactly. Then no time to think.
Oh, and time to think it all.
And of course, Rob protests. He's like,
Well, I bet.
"I'm not prepared.
Yeah.
I don't have the right gear." But the sergeant wasn't having any of it.
No. You're playing, son.
Next thing he knows, he's on the field playing left wing for the RAF team.
Left wing, that's
Yeah.
not as bad as some other positions.
Right.
Maybe a little bit of a blessing in disguise for Rob.
Yeah, maybe a little less intense.
What do you think? Would you have been terrified or excited in that moment?
Oh, man. I think I would have been a mix of both.
Yeah.
Definitely a healthy dose of both.
Yeah, heart pounding.
But the story doesn't end there.
Oh, no.
At halftime, they're down a man.
Oh, boy.
And they decide to move Rob.
The reluctant substitute.
The reluctant substitute into the forwards as a flanker.
Talk about trial by fire.
I know, right? For the relative safety of the wing, straight into the thick of it.
Yeah, into the heart of the action.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Rob describes this moment where he dives for the ball, looks up,
oh no,
and sees these three massive opposing players.
Oh my goodness.
Coming straight at him like a freight train.
That's terrifying.
He said it's like his life flashed before his eyes.
Oh, I bet.
Thankfully, the referee blew the whistle just in time.
A true lifesaver, that ref.
I know, right? Talk about a close call.
Yeah. In that moment, it's like the reality of the situation hits you, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's a game. Yeah.
It's a game.
But there's real danger there, especially when you're thrown in like Rob was.
Absolutely. The good thing they pulled him out.
Absolutely.
So despite this near-death experience,
as Rob jokingly calls it,
and the fact that his team lost by a landslide.
Oh, no. What was the score?
40-3.
Oof. That's a rough one.
He still talks about the amazing camaraderie in the clubhouse after the match.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, sharing food, drinks, stories. It sounds like a real bonding experience. So Rob plays this rugby match at Ballymoney RFC. He gives it his all, really puts his heart into it.
And how did it go?
Well, let's just say he ended up with some incredibly sore legs.
Oh, I can imagine.
He actually describes walking like John Wayne for days afterwards.
Ouch.
Yeah, must have been quite painful.
I bet it was. You have to wonder what was going through Rob's mind during that drive to Downpatrick. Was he apprehensive, annoyed, or just resigned to the situation?
He doesn't really delve into his emotions in the source material, but he does describe the experience itself quite vividly.
Okay, what happened?
He eventually found a supplier.
All right.
And the woman who helped him, well, she was incredibly kind and chatty.
Oh, that's nice.
They talked about all sorts of things, completely unrelated to the conflict.
That's interesting.
Like in that moment, all the tension, all the fear just faded away.
A little bit of normalcy in the midst of all that chaos?
Exactly. Rob specifically mentions how much he enjoyed that normal interaction.
I bet he did. Okay, so moving on, we get to the story about Rob needing new work boots.
Seems pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah, a pretty ordinary task.
Except remember, this is Northern Ireland during the Troubles.
Right. And even something as simple as buying work boots could become a security risk.
Exactly.
Back then, you couldn't just pop into a shop without considering the potential dangers.
You'd have to remember the atmosphere of suspicion and fear that permeated daily life during that period.
Absolutely. You never knew who to trust or where the next threat might come from.
And in Rob's case, buying new boots meant a trip to Downpatrick with a guard.
Wow. Just for work boots.
Yep. It really highlights how even the most mundane activities could become complicated in that environment.
It's almost absurd when you think about it.
This simple act of buying new work boots becomes this elaborate security operation.
And those boots kind of point to a key aspect of this work, the physicality. This wasn't just sitting at a desk, you know?
No.
Rob was out there hands-on wrestling with this equipment and the terrain.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have Rob working on this RAF base for a few weeks.
Right?
And then he returns to Cardiff Airport with his coworkers.
Okay.
But here's the thing that really caught my eye.
What's that?
Instead of being excited to go home, Rob is actually more looking forward to getting back to work on ships.
Interesting.
So I got to ask, why would someone choose that unpredictable life at sea over what seems like a pretty stable job?
It makes you wonder, though, what was it about the radar work?
Yeah.
Or maybe even Northern Ireland itself that didn't quite resonate with Rob in the long term?
Yeah.
Was it the isolation of the countryside, the pressure of Cold War tensions?
Right.
Or was it simply a longing for that open ocean?
You know, that's something for our listeners to think about.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us on Beyond the Engine Room. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with others who might find it fascinating. See you next time on the Open Seas.